Speedrunning. It's an ever-growing video gaming niche where you try your absolute best to get the least value for your dollar by completing a game in the shortest possible time. Just kidding, of course. Obviously, to get a competitive time in these games, you would need to play for more than any sane person would. Now, currently the most popular game to speedrun is Super Mario 64, and it's easy to see why. There's complex movement coupled with unique and interesting glitches, all while being coated in a thick layer of delicious nostalgia. This has led to a competitive speedrunning scene where runners are consistently taking the top spot back from one another. Recently, at the time of this video, the Speedrunner Cheese actually just took back the world record in the 120 star category, with an impressive 1 hour, 37 minute, and 50 second completion time.
Fuck! I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
So I thought, what better way to commemorate this achievement than by trying to beat Cheese at his own game? Now, I don't actually have any speedrunning talent, but what I do have is some degree of baking ability. Since the core storyline of the game involves Mario trying to rescue Princess Peach to get her piece of her sweet, sweet cake, why don't I see if I can bake a cake in less time than it would take Cheese to beat the game? Now, taking a look at the cake, it seems to be relatively simple with 4 main parts: the cake, the frosting, the fruit, and the toppings. The cake looks to be some sort of simple yellow cake, which is great for me, I love yellow cake. Now, the frosting on the other hand seems to be very cartoony and thick, which means I think I'm going to have to use some sort of fondant for most of it, which is kind of unfortunate because I don't really like fondant. But the rest of it seems to be these kind of like wispy detailings, which I can probably do with buttercream. The fruit, on the other hand, seems to be strawberries and cherries, but with some sort of unnatural sheen to them. I'm thinking for this, I can dip them in some sort of candied syrup, sort of like a tangulu. Tangulu? Tangulu?
Tangulu.
So a tangulu, which is a Chinese fruit candy dessert. And then for the rest of the toppings, it seems to be sort of like wedding toppers, as well as a chocolate bar with a thank you on it, which I could probably do with frosting as well. Now, making all these things and then assembling the cake in a little over an hour and a half is going to be a pretty big challenge. So I made this handy dandy Gantt chart to kind of map out the process so I have a plan moving forward. I'm going to assume that you can't tell what this chart is saying, so I'm going to blow it up and go over it real quick. It splits the 1 hour and 37 minute timeline into 5-minute chunks and outlines what I hope to be doing at that time. I then broke it down further into 5 main sections: making the cake in red, the buttercream in yellow, the fondant in blue, the tangulu in green, and the assembly in pink. As you can see, I'm hoping that the cake is going to take a little over an hour to make, bake, and cool. Then during the baking process, I'm hoping to make the frosting, fondant, and tangulu, as well as prep for the decorating while the cake is cooling down. Then, once the cake is cooled, that should leave me with just over half an hour to decorate the whole thing should everything else go to plan. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get back to the rest of the video. Now that we have the plan, I think the only thing left to do is make the cake. Alright, so I'm not actually going to go over the ingredients that I'll be using because, well, it's a lot. So if you want to see the recipes, I'll leave them in the description down below. Otherwise, here's a representation of everything that I will need. Alright, so I think I got everything I need to get started here. I mean, I got my stuff to make the cake, I got my various accoutrements back there to make everything else, got a hot plate for the tangulu, I got stand mixer ready, got my oven preheated to 350 for the cakes, and now I think the only thing left to do is get started. I got 97 minutes 50 seconds on the clock, and I guess I'll start in 3, 2, 1, and go. Alright, so obviously I'm not going to make you sit through an hour and a half of me actually making the cake, so I'm going to speed through most of the footage. The first part here is me buttering and flouring the cake tins, then making the cake batter and putting the cakes in the oven. As you can see, this took me to right around 80 minutes remaining, which is only a little over the 15 minutes I was originally anticipating it taking. Alright, so this is a big mess, obviously, but we're doing okay on time so far. We just need to get the buttercream frosting going, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so like I just said, the next step is actually relatively simple. It's just me making the buttercream frosting, which is pretty straightforward. It just involves me taking the butter and mixing it together with some powdered sugar and a little vanilla extract. Then while that's mixing, I got started on the fondant, which is also pretty easy. It just involves me taking some marshmallows and mixing with a little bit of water, and then I microwave in 30-second bursts for around 3 minutes. Afterwards, once the molten marshmallow has cooled a little bit, I start mixing in some of the powdered sugar. After that, I just start kneading together the mixture to get a uniform final product. I will note though, at this point the fondant is still relatively warm, so it's more pliable than the final product will be, and it will firm up a little bit as it cools. After that, I just clean up a little bit and wait to take the cakes out of the oven. Cakes. Okay, so now the next couple things we need to do are let the cakes cool down and start on the tangulu. The recipe for the sugar coating is relatively simple. It's only 2 parts sugar for 1 part water. The important thing to do is not to stir the sugar solution as we're warming it up to around 300 degrees Fahrenheit. You then just have to dip the fruit in the molten sugar and then immediately into an ice water bath in order to solidify the candied coating. I, however, messed this step up pretty bad because then I left the fruit in the water and then that melted off the sugar coating, thus rendering the tangulu useless. So definitely don't leave the fruit in the water for too long. As the sugar was coming up to temperature, I then started to get some of the other stuff ready, like putting the buttercream into the piping bags. Whew, okay, so it's been a mess so far, but we're getting, I think, close to the end. We're right on schedule, technically. So I put the cakes in the freezer just to help cool them down a little bit faster. I'm gonna try it. As you can see, I got some buttercream in the piping bag and some on my nose as well. Probably way more than we'll need. I'm gonna try and get a little bit more into this one, just so we can do some fine detailing, like the thank you on the chocolate bar. And then I think we're good to go. We have 25 minutes to assemble this cake. Alright, so we're finally in the home stretch, which is basically just decorating and finishing up the cake. To do this, I first took the bottom layer of the cake and then put it on a cake stand, and then put a thin layer of buttercream on top of it. After this, I put the second layer of the cake on and prepared to put the fondant on top. This first involved rolling the fondant very thin, which caused it to stick to my countertop. To fix this though, I just needed to dust it with a little bit more powdered sugar. After this, I laid the fondant on top of the cake and trimmed away the excess. After the excess was gone, I rolled up some of the fondant to reveal the yellow cake beneath and give the cake a little skirt. Then I piped on some of the buttercream using a piping bag and a nozzle to give it some texture. Then I started to place on some of the fruit, which again unfortunately had some of the sugar melted off. I then tried to write thank you on the chocolate bar using a piping bag, but quickly realized I was not going to be able to get the letters thin enough. Also, I was running out of time, so eventually I just kind of gave up on that. You'll see the result, it's not good. Then I placed the wedding toppers, which were just some figurines I bought off of Amazon, put the chocolate bar on, and that was pretty much it. After admiring my handiwork for a little bit, the cake was done. And I even had a little bit of time to spare. Now let's cut back to me in the final moments of finishing the cake. So in the final 10 seconds, what have we learned? That I am not as good of a cake decorator. Not even that I thought I was a good cake decorator, but I'm a worse one than I thought. We learned that tangulu is more finicky than it's made out to be online, and that I write like a serial killer on chocolate bars, and that for an hour and a half cake, I think I made a mess that's gonna take me 2 hours to clean up. So, all in all, I mean, can't complain. I think that we did a decent job. I'm gonna take some beauty shots, probably get ready for a taste test, and start cleaning up. So I'll see you after that. All right, I guess now the only thing left to do is actually taste it. I mean, you know, not a bad looking cake, honestly. 2 layers, a little fruit on top. Could be a pretty bad wedding cake, but all right, let's get into tasting it. I'm actually allergic to cherries. All right, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I think I did a pretty good job. I mean, especially for a 90-minute cake, I think this came out pretty well. The taste is, you know, pretty good. I mean, the cake could be a little better. It's a little dense. I think that's mostly because I rapidly cooled it in the freezer, so a little lighter texture would have been nice. The fondant is still fondant, so not my favorite thing, but the marshmallow one is a little better than like a different kind of fondant. The buttercream came out really good. The fruit is a little disappointing that it isn't, you know, tangulu. The fact that it melted was kind of unfortunate. But you know, for 90 minutes, I think I'd give my execution, you know, maybe like a 7 out of 10 overall. A couple of these things, the tangulu, and I actually had not made fondant before, so those were like the first time I'd ever done them. So yeah, I mean, I think that this was a pretty good challenge. I enjoyed it. I think it came out pretty good in the end. I'm actually not going to finish the rest of this. I'm in the middle of a cut right now, but I have plenty of people I can share it with, so happy about that. Anyways, though, that's it for me. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and a sub. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye! This is the mess. Oh, Maron. Oh my god.